When you think of your favorite entertainers and athletes, you probably picture them at the height of their powers, commanding stages, screens, and playing fields with seemingly superhuman talent. But behind the glamour and glory, many faced silent battles with diseases that would ultimately cut their lives tragically short. Some struggled for years with conditions they kept private, while others were diagnosed far too late for treatment to make a difference. The stories you're about to hear reveal not just the fragility of life, but how these diseases disproportionately affect Black communities and why awareness could save countless lives. Here are 13 devastating stories about Black celebrities whose lives were claimed by horrible diseases. Bernie Mac's 25-year battle. Bernard Jeffrey McCullough, known to the world as Bernie Mac, spent a quarter-century living with a disease most people had never heard of. In 1983, when he was just 26 years old and building his comedy career, doctors diagnosed him with sarcoidosis, a mysterious inflammatory disease that causes tiny clusters of inflamed tissue called granulomas to form in various organs throughout the body. For Bernie, it primarily attacked his lungs. Sarcoidosis affects African Americans 3 times more often than white Americans, and when Black people develop it, it tends to be far more severe and more likely to involve the lungs. The disease has no known cause and no cure. For most of his career, few people knew about Bernie's condition. He was careful about his health, fanatical about exercise and strength training, and worked closely with doctors to manage his symptoms. He tested new treatments as they became available, never letting the disease stop him from pursuing his dreams. His stand-up motto said it all: "I ain't scared of you." And for 25 years, he lived that philosophy, bringing laughter to millions through his groundbreaking sitcom, The Bernie Mac Show, and memorable roles in films like Ocean's 11 and Bad Santa. In July 2008, Bernie was admitted to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago with pneumonia. For someone with sarcoidosis, even a common infection becomes dangerous because the disease weakens the lungs and makes it harder to fight off respiratory illnesses. After 3 weeks in intensive care, his heart gave out. He died on August 9, 2008, at age 50. His publicist stated that pneumonia, not sarcoidosis, was the official cause of death, but the reality is more complex. The sarcoidosis had left him vulnerable, unable to fight the infection his body would normally have overcome. Before his death, Bernie and his wife Rhonda established the Bernie Mac Foundation to support sarcoidosis research and help patients access resources. The foundation continues his legacy, funding research and bringing attention to a disease that still mystifies doctors today. Bernie's death brought sarcoidosis out of obscurity and into the public consciousness, potentially saving lives through increased awareness. Chadwick Boseman's secret 4-year fight. In 2016, the same year Chadwick Boseman stepped into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as T'Challa in Captain America: Civil War, doctors delivered devastating news. He had stage 3 colon cancer. He was 39 years old. What came next was one of Hollywood's most closely guarded secrets. Only a handful of people knew, including his agent, producing partner, trainer, and family. Boseman underwent surgeries and multiple rounds of chemotherapy while filming some of his most physically demanding roles. He bulked up for Black Panther, slimmed down for Marshall, and delivered powerful performances in Da 5 Bloods and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, all while his body was being ravaged by cancer treatments. His trainer, who had known him for 9 years, later revealed the extraordinary discipline it took for Chadwick to maintain his physical presence on screen while undergoing such brutal treatments. The cancer progressed from stage 3 to stage 4. On August 28, 2020, at just 43 years old, Chadwick Boseman died at his Los Angeles home with his wife and family by his side. The announcement of his death became the most liked tweet in Twitter history, a testament to how deeply he had touched people around the world. His death sent shockwaves through the Black community and beyond, not just because of who he was, but because of what he represented. young black men being struck down by a disease most people associated with much older patients. Colorectal cancer rates in young adults have been rising sharply for decades. Compared to people born around 1950, millennials and Generation Xers have double the incidence rates of colon cancer and quadruple the rate of rectal cancer. Even more troubling, African Americans face rates 20% higher than non-Hispanic whites, with death rates 40% higher. Following Bozeman's death, Internet searches for colorectal cancer surged by 3,590%, particularly in black communities. Organizations like the American Cancer Society reported a 331% increase in donations in the weeks after his death. His passing forced a conversation about early screening and detection that continues today. Arthur Ashe's unwanted legacy. Arthur Ashe was a pioneer who shattered barriers in a sport dominated by white players. He was the first African-American man selected to the United States Davis Cup team and the only black man to ever win singles titles at Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, and the Australian Open. He used his platform to speak out against injustice, even getting arrested for protesting the George H.W. Bush administration's treatment of Haitian refugees. But in 1983, during what should have been routine heart surgery, Arthur received a blood transfusion that would ultimately kill him. The blood was contaminated with HIV. He was diagnosed with the virus in 1988 after entering New York Hospital for emergency brain surgery. Even after learning he had AIDS, Arthur didn't stop his activism. He created inner-city tennis programs for youths in Newark, Detroit, Atlanta, Kansas City, and Indianapolis. He helped establish foundations dedicated to defeating AIDS and promoting urban health. But he kept his diagnosis private, not wanting to become defined by his illness. In April 1992, USA Today was preparing to publish a story revealing his condition. Rather than let them control the narrative, Arthur held a press conference and announced to the world that he had AIDS. He had less than a year left. Arthur Ashe died on February 6, 1993, at age 49. After his death, AIDS activist Don Edwards expressed frustration that Arthur hadn't been more public about his battle earlier, saying his voice could have been incredibly powerful in the black community's fight against AIDS. But Arthur had wanted to be remembered for his accomplishments, not his illness. At the time of his death, tennis great Pam Shriver told the New York Times, "He was a voice for all the minorities, and that goes for women too. He brought a level of conscience to the game. Arthur's influence on tennis didn't fade after he left the sport." Today, Arthur Ashe is remembered as much for his activism and dignity as for his athletic achievements. Max Robinson's hidden struggle. Max Robinson made history as the first black national news anchor in America when he became co-anchor of ABC World News Tonight in 1978. He was a trailblazer in broadcast journalism, opening doors for countless black journalists who followed. But behind his professional success, Robinson battled personal demons. He struggled with alcoholism, and according to some accounts, his drinking became increasingly problematic as he dealt with the pressures and racism he faced in the predominantly white world of network television. In December 1988, Max Robinson died of AIDS-related complications at age 49 in Washington, D.C. He had kept his diagnosis secret, not wanting it to overshadow his professional legacy or become fodder for speculation about his personal life. The stigma surrounding AIDS, particularly in the black community, was overwhelming at that time. After his death, AIDS activists spoke about what a missed opportunity his silence had been. Robinson's fame and credibility could have made him an incredibly effective advocate for AIDS awareness and prevention in the black community, which was being disproportionately affected by the disease. An interview with the Los Angeles Times captured this frustration perfectly. Robinson had real significant value as a symbol for the black community, and it would have been more powerful had Max Robinson been enlisted in the fight against AIDS while he was alive, talking about himself as a person with AIDS. Instead, the disease that killed him remained shrouded in shame and secrecy. His death highlighted not just the devastation of AIDS, but the additional burden that stigma placed on its victims, particularly successful black men who feared the loss of their hard-won reputations. Eazy-E's fatal admission. Eric Lynn Wright, better known as Eazy-E, helped invent gangsta rap and co-founded the influential group NWA. His label, Ruthless Records, launched careers and changed the sound of hip-hop forever. He was at the peak of his influence in early 1995. In February of that year, Eazy-E was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles with what he thought was asthma. The diagnosis was far worse. He had AIDS, and it was advanced. He had likely been living with HIV for years without knowing it. On March 16th, just weeks after his diagnosis, Eazy-E issued a statement acknowledging he had AIDS. In it, he urged young people to get tested and practice safe sex. He died 10 days later, on March 26, 1995. He was only 30 years old. The speed of his decline shocked the hip-hop community and the world. How could someone so young and seemingly healthy be dead less than a month after learning he was sick? The answer lies in how AIDS was treated, or more accurately, not treated at the time. HIV medications were improving but still primitive by today's standards. More importantly, many people, particularly in communities of color, avoided testing because of the stigma. By the time symptoms appeared, the virus had often destroyed their immune systems. Eazy-E's death sent shockwaves through the black community and hip-hop culture. For many young people, it was the first time they confronted the reality that AIDS could affect them. His fame brought attention to the disease in communities where it was often ignored or hidden. His final message to get tested and protect yourself likely saved lives, even if he couldn't save his own. Tina Turner's kidneys and the price of denial. Tina Turner was diagnosed with high blood pressure in 1978 when she was 39 years old. She didn't think much of it. She was the queen of rock and roll, performing at the highest levels, believing her body was, in her own words, an untouchable and indestructible bastion. For years, she avoided conventional treatment, preferring homeopathic alternatives instead. It was a decision that would have devastating consequences. In 2009, Tina suffered a stroke. That's when doctors discovered her kidneys had already lost 35% of their function. The years of uncontrolled high blood pressure had been silently destroying them. Chronic kidney disease is called a silent killer because symptoms don't become noticeable until about 80% of kidney tissue is lost. By then, the damage is often irreversible. As her kidney function continued to decline, Tina started experiencing fatigue, nausea, and irritability, symptoms she initially blamed on medication rather than recognizing them as signs her kidneys were failing. By late 2016, her kidney function had dropped to just 5%. She had no choice but to begin dialysis, a process she described as depressing, keeping her connected to a machine for hours at a time. In January 2016, she was also diagnosed with intestinal cancer, though it was caught early, and she received an all-clear diagnosis later that year. But her kidneys continued to fail. In April 2017, her husband Erwin Bach donated one of his kidneys to her in a transplant that saved her life, at least temporarily. Her body tried to reject the organ, leading to months of complications. In March 2023, just 2 months before her death, Tina posted on social media for International World Kidney Day, openly admitting her mistakes. She wrote about how she had put herself in great danger by refusing to face the reality that I need daily, lifelong therapy with medication. She urged people to show their kidneys love because kidneys fail without pain. On May 24, 2023, Tina Turner died peacefully at her home in Switzerland at age 83 after what was described as a long illness. Her openness about her kidney disease in her final months brought crucial awareness to a condition that affects more than 37 million Americans. Aretha Franklin's rare cancer. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, had one of the most recognizable voices in music history. Songs like Respect and Natural Woman became anthems that defined generations. But in her later years, Franklin struggled with her health, though she guarded her privacy fiercely. In December 2010, she underwent surgery for what she would only describe as a serious health issue, insisting afterward that the problem has been resolved. The public speculation was intense, but Franklin refused to discuss it. She continued performing, though observers noted she had lost considerable weight and sometimes appeared frail. On August 16, 2018, Aretha Franklin died at her home in Detroit at age 76. Her publicist confirmed the cause: advanced pancreatic neuroendocrine cancer. Pancreatic neuroendocrine tumors, or PNETs, are different from the more common and even deadlier pancreatic adenocarcinoma. They account for only about 6% of all pancreatic tumors and develop from hormone-producing cells in the pancreas called islet cells. While these tumors can be deadly, they typically grow more slowly than regular pancreatic cancer. According to sources, Franklin was likely first diagnosed around 2010, meaning she lived with the disease for approximately 8 years. That's significantly longer than most people survive with pancreatic cancer, which has a 5-year survival rate of only 9% overall. Franklin had multiple risk factors for the disease. She was in her 70s, African American, struggled with obesity, and had a history of smoking. African Americans face slightly higher risks for pancreatic cancer for reasons researchers are still trying to understand. Her death sparked renewed calls for more research into pancreatic neuroendocrine tumors, which receive far less attention and funding than more common cancers, despite affecting thousands of people each year. In the year following her death, her estate established the Aretha Franklin Fund for neuroendocrine cancer research to help fund education and research into the disease that took her life. Reggie White's sleeping giant. Reggie White was known as the Minister of Defense, one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history. A 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, he played 15 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, Green Bay Packers, and Carolina Panthers, retiring in 2000 as the NFL's all-time sacks leader with 198. But White had been living with 2 serious health conditions: sarcoidosis, which affected his lungs, and sleep apnea, a disorder that caused him to stop breathing repeatedly during sleep. Sleep apnea is far more common in NFL players than in the general population, particularly among linemen like White. More than 1 in 3 offensive and defensive linemen have the condition, 7 times higher than the rate in the average population. The disorder causes people to stop breathing hundreds of times per night, starving the brain and heart of oxygen. Over time, this can lead to heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, and dangerous heart rhythms. Reggie tried using a CPAP machine, the most common treatment for sleep apnea, but he was claustrophobic and couldn't tolerate wearing the mask. On Christmas night, 2004, he went to see the movie Fat Albert with family and friends. He seemed fine, energetic, and passionate as always. The next morning, December 26th, his wife Sarah called 911. Reggie was unresponsive. He was rushed to Presbyterian Hospital in Huntersville, North Carolina, but it was too late. He died that morning at age 43. The preliminary autopsy revealed he most likely died from cardiac arrhythmia triggered by his sarcoidosis and sleep apnea. The combination of lung disease and repeated breathing cessation during sleep had put enormous strain on his heart until it simply gave out. His family spokesman expressed the shock everyone felt. A 43-year-old is not supposed to die in his sleep. It was not only unexpected, but it was also a complete surprise. Reggie wasn't a sick man. He was vibrant. He had lots and lots of energy, lots of passion. After his death, his widow Sarah, in conjunction with the Sleep Wellness Institute, founded the Reggie White Sleep Disorders Research and Education Foundation, dedicated to ensuring all people have access to treatment for sleep disorders, regardless of their financial situation. The foundation has donated CPAP machines to more than 300 people in need. If Reggie had known about oral appliances as an alternative to CPAP masks, his wife believes he might still be alive today. His death brought crucial attention to a condition that affects more than 50 million Americans, but often goes undiagnosed. Bobby DeBarge's tragic descent. Bobby DeBarge was the talented lead singer of the Motown group Switch and a member of the legendary DeBarge musical family. His falsetto voice and songwriting helped define the sound of 1970s and 80s R&B. But Bobby's demons were as powerful as his talent. He struggled with drug addiction throughout his adult life. In 1988, shortly before being sent to prison for drug trafficking, Bobby confided to his family that he had contracted HIV through intravenous drug use. This was during the height of the AIDS epidemic, when HIV was still widely viewed as a death sentence, and the stigma was overwhelming, particularly in the black community. Bobby served his prison sentence, and when he was released, he tried to rebuild his life. But by 1995, his health had deteriorated dramatically. HIV had progressed to AIDS, and his body could no longer fight off infections. His family, recognizing he was dying, sent him to a hospice in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Bobby DeBarge died there from AIDS-related complications on August 16, 1995. He was only 39 years old. His death was another tragic reminder of how AIDS was decimating the black community, particularly among those struggling with addiction. Sharing needles for intravenous drug use was one of the primary ways HIV spread in the 80s and 90s, but stigma and lack of access to clean needles and addiction treatment meant countless people became infected. Bobby's musical legacy lived on through his family. His younger siblings continued the DeBarge name, scoring hits throughout the 80s. But his early death robbed the world of what could have been decades more of musical innovation from a uniquely talented artist. Sean LeVert's jail cell death. Sean LeVert was an R&B singer and a member of the group LeVert, which he formed with his brother Gerald and friend Mark Gordon. The group had multiple hits in the 1980s, including Casanova and Pop, Pop, Pop Goes My Mind. Sean was the son of Eddie LeVert of the O'Jays, coming from R&B royalty. In March 2008, Sean was serving time at the Cuyahoga County Jail in Cleveland for failing to pay child support. According to reports, he had been experiencing breathing difficulties and told guards he wasn't feeling well. On the evening of March 30, 2008, Sean LeVert died in his cell. He was just 39 years old. The Cuyahoga County Coroner's Office determined that Sean died from complications of sarcoidosis. He had the disease in his lungs and other organs, along with other underlying health conditions. The autopsy also revealed that he had been taken off his medications when he entered jail, a common but dangerous practice that can have fatal consequences for people with chronic illnesses. The circumstances of his death raised serious questions about medical care in jails and whether he received adequate treatment for his condition while incarcerated. Sarcoidosis, as we've seen with Bernie Mac and Reggie White, can be a manageable condition with proper medical care. But without it, especially when combined with other health problems, it can be deadly. Sean's death at such a young age highlighted both the dangers of sarcoidosis and the broader issue of inadequate health care in correctional facilities. His family was devastated, losing a talented artist whose life was cut short by a disease that, with proper treatment, might not have been fatal. The AIDS epidemic's other victims. The AIDS crisis claimed countless lives in the black community beyond the celebrities whose deaths made headlines. Disco legend Sylvester, who gave us hits like Dance Disco Heat and You Make Me Feel Mighty Real, died from AIDS complications in 1988 at age 42. His flamboyant style and powerful voice helped define the disco era, but like so many others, AIDS cut his life tragically short. Howard Rollins, known for his memorable role as Coalhouse Walker Jr. in Ragtime, and later for playing Virgil Tibbs on In the Heat of the Night, died of AIDS-related lymphoma in 1996 at age 46. After struggling with substance abuse, he succumbed to a disease that was still claiming tens of thousands of lives annually. Alvin Ailey, the renowned choreographer who revolutionized modern dance through his world-famous Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, passed away from AIDS-related diseases in 1989 at age 58. His company had brought African-American cultural expression to dance in ways never seen before, inspiring generations of performers. These men and countless others died during a period when HIV and AIDS were poorly understood and highly stigmatized. Treatment options were limited, and many people avoided testing due to fear of discrimination. The disease was particularly devastating in Black communities, where it spread rapidly but was often discussed in whispers, if at all. According to the CDC, more than 290,000 African Americans with Stage 3 HY5, which is AIDS, have died since the start of the epidemic. Today, young African American gay and bisexual men account for more new HIV infections than any other group, and HIV affects African American heterosexual women more than women of any other race or ethnicity. While treatments have improved dramatically, making HIV a manageable chronic condition rather than a death sentence, disparities in access to care mean Black Americans continue to be disproportionately affected.